Hi all. There goes your mic working as well. Just check.
It looks like it's only you and me for the moment, which is something that I don't know. Oh, Jan is
No,
here.
we're a bunch here. We're a bunch
Yeah,
here.
there's more down
Ah,
on the
you're a
right as well.
bunch. Yeah. It's only Rob and me, the ones that are using video. I checked on the Teams link I shared by error just to be sure that there is nobody there.
Okay. Yes, we've got slightly lighter attendance than I was hoping. Oh, there's more people joining. Fine. We could probably start with these beginning slides for a moment while people join. So, so technically this meeting here is an IETF virtual interim meeting. Our plan going forward is to have these in a more informal fashion across between interim meetings and design team meetings. So we didn't want to set up a formal design team because we didn't want to hive off people from the working group, but we wanted to be able to run these in a more ad hoc and informal way. But at least today I'll flash up the note well and things like that so that we all know the rules and things like that. I think we'll have, I'll come to the agenda, we'll have sort of 15 minutes to discuss some plans today. I don't spend too much time planning, but at the same time, I just want to try to recap what the expectations are from what we had before. Feel free to ask questions as you go. So just to cover the note well, I'm going to flash this on the screen. You should all know this comes under the note well. I think nearly everyone, maybe not everyone here, is an experienced participant, so they'll know already. But just a moment to read through that and realize that everything you say in this meeting and submit to this meeting is comes under the IETF note well and is a contribution to the IETF process. And note really well, I'm not sure this will be an issue here, but the expectation is that everyone is polite and treats each other with respect in these meetings. So that is something that's expected and required attending these meetings. And if you have any concerns with behavior in these meetings, then I'd contact Diego and I or the Zombuds team also could be contacted in that regard, or the AD again. If there's any complaints, but just the expectation is we all work collaboratively towards our combined goal that we have here. So, so that's worth noting. One thing later on I'll mention is about using WebEx maybe rather than MeetEcho. Looks like we are getting decent participants. Okay. So the agenda, as you see, it's very light. So I've got 15 minutes just to talk through some plans, and then I want to move on to design team discussion. So the first things, apologies, Diego and I planned to get these going a bit quicker than we had after IETF 123, but summer holidays got in the way, and then a bit of work did as well. So we've been a bit slow getting these going. I'm hoping that we will run these, and again, we can have some discussion today on roughly a weekly basis, certainly running up to IETF 124. And then after that, we will try and continue them on a similar cadence, but we'll basically base it on what the input and feedback is from the people who are participating in the work. So our goal is not to get in the way as we go forward. Now, in terms of what was proposed before, this was the next steps that came out of IETF 123. So looking through liaison steps, if there's any work to leverage, I think that still needs to be done. Documents adoption polls, so we need to still do use case and terminology adoption. Dave and I will try and get this kicked off soon. I need to contact the authors of those. And then the next bit is sort of make progress on framework document. That's with the people working on that. But the key bit that these lightweight design team virtual interim meetings are meant to cover is effectively making progress on the data models and going forward with those. And then in terms of what Diego and I were thinking is we'll have more formal interims on maybe a monthly or 6 weekly cadence if necessary. So that's really about trying to report progress back to a larger working group, or that can be done via email as well. But the expectation is that the design teams can be done in a more formal way as we go forward. So this is the standard slide in terms of what is out of scope. So again, we will focus on trying to, certainly the design team meetings, on the core core work of the working group. So this is the first set of slides I wanted to show. The next ones I wanted to remind folks for is, hopefully I've got the right slides. So the green data model next step. So these are the slides that Diego and I put up at the last IETF meeting. And I won't cover this in detail here, but just to summarize, the idea is weekly roughly design team meetings, an hour to an hour and a half long. We currently set them an hour and a half. They could be longer. We can change the cadence. So it depends on how people want to work. As I said here, once a month we could have a more formal agreement. The idea here being we should report back to the working group. And the proposal is to have a GitHub repository to hold a working copy of the draft that folks can then collaborate on and work towards. I will show you some example of that. I need to work with Jan to check whether he's happy to use my tooling, and know that Med has also got some alternative tooling that possibly could be used as well. Jan has agreed to act as an editor of this draft and the Jan models, and that's really just to try and drive this work more quickly. And then initially, Diego and I will happily help chair the weekly meetings and arbitrate discussions as necessary. But the plan is over time that we'll try and step out of that. So once these sort of we're on a good path and things like that, then I'm hoping that Diego and I, our time will be required less in these design team meetings, and we can just let the folks get on and progress the work. There was agreement before we have a dedicated email address, but we'll use the main green working group mailing list for discussions and things. The GitHub repository can be used for issue tracks and things like that. And then finally, like all design teams, whatever comes out of this design team will be counted as an individual draft. So it doesn't automatically get adopted by the working group. It has to go through a standard adoption process, and hence others can comment on that. Others can comment on that as we go forward. And the intention here is, though, if we start to make progress and we get a good sort of set of basis, then we could adopt that as a working group item, and the design team could still, or people interested in that work could still carry on working on that as we progress it going forward. I think we've sort of covered this already, so that's already done, and that's okay. And this is the key bit. So define a simple Yang model offering base energy data model covering component, device, and network level. Jan's got some more details here, what he's proposed. I hope to try and bring that up on the screen as well so we can discuss this. Identify and define any common groupings and metrics. So again, the idea is to expand on the metrics document as we need to, but the core goal of this team, or this focus, this work, is on the data models. And we should take into consideration any impacts on the draft green framework, but it's not a specific requirement. The models must conform to that specific framework document. There's a good reason for it not to do so. Having said that, in the last meeting, there seemed to be quite strong support for having a framework document, so that would be aligned. And the last thing to say is the goal here isn't really to have models that are fully complete. We can have augmentations to those data models as necessary, and it's getting the common base structures that are key. So that's our goal here. And that's it. So I think that would be a good time to take questions. I'm hoping I've got to get the last set of slides that I want. Let me just see if I can find those. So does anyone have any comments on this? Are they happy with this rough process in terms of what we're proposing here?
Don't see any. Oh, nice.
I think there are, yes, that makes sense to me, the plan that you have. I just wanted to comment on that.
Okay, I just need to try and get the slides to be uploaded. One moment, maybe I can share them directly. I'll upload them first. If you give me a moment, please. Let's try this a different way. Oh, I should say I haven't commented on meeting minutes as well. So while I'm trying to figure this out, so the plan is that we will do informal meeting minutes. Today I'll capture some and we'll just summarize the meeting minutes. But going forward, we'll probably just capture rough minutes. And again, in terms of agenda, we'll have a fixed agenda. Still can't find what I'm looking for. Let's do that.
Rob, are you trying to share something? Or?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get it. I was trying to upload, but I should be able to do it now, hopefully. Is this readable? Hopefully that's coming through.
Now, yes.
Okay. So I would like to talk through Jan's proposal and just check that everyone here is happy with this. So I know Marisol had some comments, but I think there was some discussion on this, but not too much. So basically, it'd be good to try and get agreement that this is a good way forward in terms of how we'll operate. And if so, we'll then start working on these particular things. Now, we'll then use that as agenda items going forward. So I give people a chance to read through this. Benoit.
So Rob, I read through one, but I'm not sure what I agree to. Collection source protocol, path frequencies, units. Yes, I agree. Aggregation mechanisms. Yes, I agree. So the Creo API, it's a Yang model. So sure, I agree. Is there something more behind it that we should pay attention to?
Well, it's just this is going to be the focus on. So if you think this is the right thing for the initial focus of what we should be doing, then now's the time to speak up. If not, then we'll start with this and we'll move. It's not fixed in stone.
Oh, sorry, maybe it's my mistake. I was thinking that it was the issue 1, 2, 3, etc. that you were referring to in the previous working group. Sorry about that. Maybe that's a confusion.
No. So basically, Jan had proposed prioritizing these different items to focus what we start working on, basically in terms of the data models. I mean, maybe Jan, I could get you to speak to this more if you're happy to.
Sure. So I looked at what was in scope and what people have written in various drafts that have been circulating in this working group, and try to see, okay, if we want to do Yang modeling work based on whatever is in these drafts, there's a number of different topics, and I tried to group these topics into an order that I think is reasonable and group things together. So into 4 packages then, work item 1, 2, 3, and 4. And these work items, they can run in parallel, but I would suggest not running all 4 at the same time. So I would say that we start focusing mostly like 60% on work item 1 and 30% on work item 2, 5% on work item 3, and 2% on work item 4, or something like that. I mean, most focus right now on work item 1. And as time passes, we will shift the focus as work item 1 is starting to be more and more complete. We can have more focus on 2 and less on 1 and a little bit more on 3. So we move over this set of questions. And the bullet points inside each work item is just trying to hint at what sort of issues, topics, questions we are talking about in these work items. And
So,
of course, there's a lot of 3 dots, 3 ellipses symbols over here and there, because we have to define as a group what these things really mean and exactly what's in scope.
And Benoit, yes. So people, I'm happy for people just to speak up. They don't necessarily need to queue for this session.
All right, very good. So Jan, can you expand on the query API? Because a Yang module will generate APIs, or maybe you have in mind something like in Onions with some level of abstractions. Is this what you have in mind with the query API?
I think the query API intends to be an API which you can direct towards controllers or something to ask them, okay, what is the best path, or what is the cost of something, or so this sort of specific questions that other entities in the network might be interested in. That's just what I had in mind with query API.
So this is somehow the latest interface we added in the framework draft, which is able to be generic for any service, like the Petra and things like this?
Things like that, yes. I don't think it's necessarily Petra only, but Petra would fit into that category.
Thank you.
And then I have a question in terms of how you plan to work. And Jan, again, I'm putting you on the spot here a bit because I think whatever works best for you in terms of presenting stuff and organizing this would make sense. Doing it in a way that's sort of open. My suggestion would be to do this on GitHub. I've got a repro that I tried to set up. I haven't sent it to you yet, but I can show it later. That might be a way forward. Are you thinking initially doing a single draft for these work items or separate drafts, or are you thinking just Git models or issues? Do you have any ideas if that's the thing? How?
You know, I think mostly in Yang models, and how that translates to draft is a secondary question for me. But I'm sure that work item 1 alone will be a number of different Yang models. Exactly how we group them into drafts, I'm not sure yet. Let's see. And I have definitely myself some ideas and opinions about what you can do with work item 1 and Yang models, but I'm sure other people have too. So let's see if we can divide up work item 1 into smaller pieces, that we can have some of these interim meetings and say that, okay, today we'll talk about bullet 1 and 2 or work item 1 or something. And then the next meeting we will continue and refine. That's at least how I would look at it. But before we make too much plans, maybe we can have some voices from this meeting. Is this a good division into work items? And is this idea to focus mostly on work item 1 to begin with, but also do some work on work item 2 and 3 in parallel? Is that a good idea, or what do people say?
I have this question on the email that it was sent after the IETF meeting, where we will put this kind of normalization. You already mentioned about defining those JAM models, but is the intention to build those JAM models as a reference to normalize wherever information we can collect from networking equipment? It is just for me to understand as well how this structure might flow.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at work item 1, that is something that's mostly focusing on the controller side of things, how a controller does collection, aggregation, and delivery. Work item 2 is focusing on devices. So if you're looking at different parts of this, you'll see that some of the Yang models that you have in mind might go in work item 2, and some of them are in work item 1.
Okay,
Jan,
thank you.
is there a reason? I mean, what's the reasoning for focusing first on the controller Yang model versus the device? Because somehow they should run in parallel, right? This is like the bottom up versus top down. Aren't we having like a wish list in the controller, right? And then actually, whenever we arrive to work item 2, we see, well, the devices, the routers, won't be able to even report what we need. So, okay, you understood my question.
Yes, we can, of course, discuss reversing the order of work item 1 and 2, but I think this order is the best one, because the least explored area is the work item 1, and it will sit in the center of the solution. So I think instead of going bottom up or top down, I want to go middle first. And we can, of course, discuss it's not one way or the other. And as I said earlier, also, I think they should go in parallel. But I think we should initially focus more on one and then gradually move over to equally 1 and 2 maybe. And then after 1 is starting to be somewhat understood, we can move over towards number 3.
Two points on this. One is the first thing is that looking at work item 1 and work item 2, this reminds me what is in the good old SDN definitions. We're talking about the northbound interface and the southbound interface, aren't we? I mean, one thing is what the controller exposes or make usable to any application to make things to make data available and make some sense on how the different elements in the network are consuming energy. But in the second case, what we're talking is about how the devices inform the controller about this. So I know that probably is a little bit outdated, or maybe it could be even arguable, but if we think about northbound interface and southbound interface, probably would be, I mean, at least for some people could be a more understandable. That said, Rob was replying to Dan on some questions about the use cases and the looking for examples. I think that would be helpful as well. And this is probably one of the first things that we could discuss, or you as the members of the design team could consider, just to make things to clarify and to provide better understanding of what we're trying to address.
I can see you talking, Rob, but we can't hear you.
You're muted.
Yes, sorry. I was saying, any more comments on Jan's proposal? I've just invited Daniel to come and speak to the mic if he wants to, and he's made some comments in the chat.
Hi guys. So first of all, apologies, because I think it's the first green session I've actually attended, and it's in response to a problem. I have a problem, and I think maybe this working group can kind of help. So I started looking at some of the documents and also the archive, and then this is kind of a really useful slide. Now, my concern was, and I just echoed it in the chat, was are we too quick to work on the solution, or I've missed the earlier discussion of what the actual problem is here and how we're defining kind of the architecture and the approach. Thanks to Rob, he's just kind of pointed out there's a lot of commonality between some of the use cases in the use case document. So what Jan's proposing here is highly applicable. I suppose I need to go back and look at those use cases in more detail to see if the problem that I have is actually going to be solved by Jan's proposal, because it's something that I can help in terms of implementation. Got sort of multiple stakeholders. It's a data center application, and they have a specific commercial problem that needs to be solved that's sort of underpinned by some regulatory requirements. When do you expect to have an architecture view, Jan, that would help kind of put some of these technical components into a picture that I can map onto my use case? I suppose that's my first question.
Obviously, I'm very interested to hear more about your use case, and when it even has legal implications, it becomes suddenly even more interesting. There are a number of documents in this group already circulating that has both architecture and use cases in them. So from that point of view, I think we have been talking about use cases and architecture for a bit already. Now, not all of those use cases document are exactly the same and prioritized the same way, and not all the architectures are compatible. So we will need to work on that. But I don't know if I want to start here talking about devoting meetings to architectures. I want to see which areas we can start tinkering with, and then see. Then we can compare when we have some skeletons. Is this something that's viable for architecture A, B, and C, and use case C, D, E, F? So it's difficult to get started without having anything. If you don't have anything, I mean, we have many models too, but they are also quite. You can't have them all; they are not compatible.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Rob.
You respond first. I was just going to bring you back up to speed of things with various things. So go ahead first.
So what I'll commit to do then is sort of have a high level description of my effectively my customer's use case, and I'll look at the current Ivy model, and probably there's actually some external SDO work as well, because it's kind of a combination of networking with bare metal power usage, and there's a sort of carbon cost aspect there as well. And where I see the gaps in terms of what the model currently provides versus what I need it to provide, I'll kind of highlight those. In terms of protocols, that's kind of less important because it's very easy to run a polyglot that will convert from whatever encoding I need to an over-the-wire mechanism. And I suppose from an IETF perspective, we're more interested in sort of JSON RPC or RESTconf anyway. So there's no new protocol work that's needed. It's just really on the modeling. And I mean, my thought on Green was essentially it's more of a cookbook, and where there are gaps with existing models, then potentially they need to be extended. Unless you think, and I don't know because I haven't done the due diligence yet, there is a huge gap at the moment, and there's several new models that are going to have to sort of be derived from this discussion.
So can I just give an answer to try and cover lots of your questions, Daniel? So first of all, it's worth reading the Green Charter because that covers basically what we're trying to solve. And at the bottom of that charter is some short-term goals that we're trying to work on. And very much within focus is us defining some Yang data models for returning metrics and things off devices. So that's what our key goal is. And as part of that, we're also meant to be producing use cases, maybe some terminology documents, maybe a framework and things like that. So at the moment, the working group hasn't adopted anything. We're in the process of trying to adopt the use cases and terminology. The use cases it struggled a bit in terms of getting enough reviews and things. So again, we'll have another go at trying to get that adopted. But the aim of the use cases is just to be a focus of what the working group is working on. We're not intended to publish the use cases as an RFC is our intention. It's just a working document. We don't think we need to formally come through and do like a requirements phase, because in my experience, sometimes people can use those requirements phases to drive the solution in a particular direction rather than doing them generically. So I think I'm trying to avoid that. And then in terms of, I mean, the working group's been going for at least for a year now, is it? We sort of struggled to make good progress in terms of actually getting on with the core work and defining the model. So that was our goal here, was to have these design teams to actually start doing the models and do some of the other work in parallel. So Benoit and others are defining a framework document, which is very similar to, I guess, an architecture that will set out how all this works together. Again, it's not been adopted, but there was good interest within the working group as that might be a good basis. So if that document progresses and continues to evolve, then that might be something that, again, the working group would consider adopting down the line. So that's what's coming from that perspective. Just to recap your initial questions are Diego and I the technical leaders in this work? Not at all. So neither of us have a direct interest in this work in terms from a technical perspective. Our only goal here is to facilitate discussion. So that's what we're trying to do. And in terms of the design team, the only reason we're involved is because we haven't created a formal design team. And one of the discussions that came up earlier was the sort of, in some cases, two competing solutions. And it was recommended that maybe you might need some chairs to help arbitrate those discussions to make sure to try and bring the two sides together. So that, again, is why we're involved in the process. But the sooner we can hand off and get the technical experts to drive this, Diego and I will both be very happy to do that. So that's not our goal. So we won't be treading on toes or setting particular directions. Now, And as I said here, Jan's proposal, I only put these slides over very together quickly. His isn't a proposed solution here. It's only a proposal of how we focus on tackling the problems. And again, I just want to have something down there where we get started, because I think once folks get started, that will help. And my hope here is within the working group, folks can work together and start building a new draft collectively where they get commonality, and that'll help solve the issue. We got two different competing solutions. It's like maybe that's a way to drive consensus. So hopefully that sort of helps bring you up to speed a bit more and understands where we are now and where we're going and why we're doing what we are.
I'd like to add just one more answer to your question, Daniel. You asked if there's mostly islands of things that need to be connected a bit. And I think that's fairly true for work item 2. When it comes to devices, there are lots of drafts out there already, or even RFCs in some cases, that are handling this. So there's good progress there. But on the work item 1, on the controller side, I would describe it as a pretty huge gap. So there's, of course, people are doing that, but they have all proprietary models now.
One question on this proposal to the chairs. So how do you see the framework evolving? Because if we follow the work items there are a couple of points that are important for the framework, right? Control capabilities, discovery, I could mention many of those. So do we work from here and we adjust the framework? Do we have discussion of the framework and we adjust the work item here? How do you see this working?
Okay, I'll speak to it first, and then Diego can speak to it. So my opinion is that I see these two effectively evolving in parallel. So I would like to see the actual model document starting to get adopted and working going forward, and the framework document working in parallel, like side by side. So there's hopefully the same folks or similar people are discussing both the framework and the solution together, because I don't think that one should necessarily come first or other. I think the two need to go hand in hand.
Actually, I just wanted to say that there are aspects that need to be aligned, but there is no contradiction. So at the end, there is not that they can go in parallel. They are not going to diverge or clash. That could be even worse. So, and I totally agree with Rob. I know that, and you reminded us about that, Benoit, that we were considering for the adoption of 3 documents. If I don't remember, I remember well. And this is something that we had to keep moving, including the framework documents, for sure.
Thank you for your answers.
And Benoit, does that make sense to you? Just to check, are you happy with what's been proposed here? Is that?
I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense because it might be the same set of people working on these, but there are like a big series of, a series of big points, right? And we have open issues in the framework that are addressed here, but in the work item 3. So, okay, there is no good answer for now, but we'll have to make it work. I have no best path forward. Let's just make it work.
Okay, and yes, that's a valid concern you've raised, in terms of, you raised that previously, that some of the issues I had before that I brought up, and I can find that list and bring them up again if that's helpful later in this meeting, is some of those aren't necessarily just tied to the data model, but they're tied to the framework, and actually you need to resolve those bigger issues collectively, and it drives both those documents forward at the same time, I think. Is that fair? Okay. Any more comments on this proposal? So, and again, I don't dictate, or don't want the chairs to dictate. I want people to be happy. So it's not clear to me yet whether there's consensus as to we just work on prioritizing the collector or the model to devices. That's not entirely clear to me. Is there any more opinions or voices on that? So Jan has suggested, in my understanding, to sort of do these in parallel a bit, but still focus on the collector first.
My goal would be that work item 1 and 2 finishes together at the same time, But work item 2 is already progressed a lot further than work item 1. So we need to spend more energy and time on work item 1 right now, I think, in order to make that happen. But you cannot finish work item 1 without work item 2 being almost finished also, or the other way around. You can't finish work item 2 without having something that's pretty good along with work item 1. And also, you should also consider work item 3 and 4 before you finish 1 and 2. So they have to go together to some extent. But right now, the one that I feel most sorely lacking is number 1.
Okay. Any more comments on this?
On my side, I agree as well on the major priority might be work item 1. It will be easier to align things on the controller base than on the devices, because so many vendors agree on the approach.
Okay. So then the next thing I think would be useful to discuss is how to actually have the design team to work. And in some senses, I'm happy for whatever people think's best. I'm going to put a proposal or suggestion up here, and then I'll leave it to Jan to decide whether he thinks that'd be work from his perspective, because I'm hoping he'll act as editor on this, but then B, to get comments from others as to whether they think that this would be a useful approach. Now, what my suggestion is to, and I can show you something I'm playing with, is to use a markdown document that sort of covers these work items in terms of a high level, and then it pulls in Yang models that you're working on at the same time. And so I can show you the tooling I can use. There's another one you might want to play with, which is one that Med's been working on. Effectively allows you to build these things very quickly. So I can show you how that works. Hopefully it doesn't break for me. And then my suggestion would be to use issues in GitHub Tracker to track what's open. So if I manage to get this working. So I will just quickly put this up. I was only sort of setting this up now. But I can show you what I mean. So is that too small? Can I make it bigger?
For me, it's too small. I don't know for other that are younger than me, but for me, it's
Why can't I get it bigger? Okay. Is that visible to folks? Is that still too small? I'm gonna have to close some of the things down to see it.
It's better.
It's better, but still not. Okay. I will try and go a bit
It's
more.
readable for me, but Diego can comment on whether he can.
That's probably about as big as I can go. So,
now it's perfect.
Fine.
At least from my tired eyes, I can read them.
Okay, so all I've done is I've created a new GitHub repository under the green working group. I will find the name or share it afterwards. It might be green design work. I do want to call it design team because this isn't technically design team. And so I'm trying to skirt in terms of it. What's his name in spirit? And again, I won't be the author of this. I've only put it in because I need the tooling to work, tool chain to work. And what will happen if I can get this one up and if this works. So effectively, it runs a build tool locally, and then it will update this on the fly. So if this is the document that's being generated, and my proposal is that we add stuff in Markdown. So if I add some more text here, this works, and if I save it, then it recompiles and comes up on the right. So this is where this works for Yang. And similarly for the Yang files, so this has got Yang tree diagrams and things in here, example Yang file in here. And again, the same thing works. So if I can find the Yang file, here's my example Yang file. So if I just copy a leaf across and throw it into here, then it will also if you add that and save it, again, it will automatically recompile it, and it updates the Yang tree output. It updates the Yang files here as well. And it should also validate examples. This is an example. I don't have an example that conforms to this schema, but again, we'll validate those. And you'll get warnings and things as the Yang files are being generated. It's a bit rough in places, as in you might get stack traces. So what my proposal is to share this with Jan, check if he can edit it and use it. It works fine on a Mac at the moment. I need to fix a couple of things to get it to work under Windows. But basically, if this doesn't work, then the alternative tool chain I'd recommend is the one that Med is sort of working on, which I think is probably somewhat similar, but you need to push it when you update. So the nice thing with this is that you can just update it on the screen as you fly. And then when you're done, when you're happy with it, then again, let me just, once you edit it, then again, you end up pushing it to the remote repository. And once that's done, then again, it'll build the draft on the using Martin Thompson's tool chain as well. So that uses a makefile to then build that and be able to submit it. So so that's what I'm proposing is we have either one or more drafts here. One might be worth starting with just to track these things and track the different things together. So any text and things we want to do can come into here. We can do Yang models and examples at the same time. So we can either discuss those Yang models or easily have the tree output and things generated for them if Yang can work on that. And then we track issues through GitHub issue tracker. So so the question to Jan is, does this, if you can get it tooling working, does this look like this would be a useful approach? If not, I'm happy to use anything else that you want. And then a question to the rest of the working group is, again, are they happy if we go for this sort of approach, or do they want to do something different?
I think this looks cool, but the important part is that it works with Martin Thompson's infrastructure.
And to explain how, yeah.
If that works, then any sort of editor will do. I mean, if there's some trouble with generating this on the fly, we can always deal with that later then. But at least we should have this Martin Thompson base plate. Beyond that, I'm happy.
Yeah, and to explain the split, so the build file in here is generating artifacts locally. It's in here. So things like generated tree output, my build file is generating this output and it stores it into the repository. And then the make file is running. That's the standard, that's Martin Thompson's standard make file effectively. That's then being used to actually compile the HTML and things like that. So what I'm using it for is, where's my example of my build file? So again, you might not need all of this, but what this is doing over the top of that and does it all locally is it pulls down any dependent RFCs, it pulls down any dependent other drafts and extracts the Yang models for them. It pulls down any INO dependencies. It allows you to rename files because sometimes the model names are wrong in the draft. It allows you to specify drafts, models you don't want, and then you can compile them and you can give a set of different things to compile together, and you can tell it to generate different tree snippets. And again, you can tell it to extract it, and then it pulls all those into files, and those are then just referenced in the source file here. So these things are generated, like generated tree output is being included. And all this stuff is just standard markdown that's running through Martin's tool. So the online tools are only using Martin's things. They're just using the standard makefile. This is something that's running locally, but allows you to update on the fly. The alternative approach that you might want to look at, Jan, that I haven't played with is Med is on the call, so he can also probably speak to it. Is I know some team are working on extending Martin's build tools to do more. I don't know if they'll run locally or not to do that. So I haven't played with that yet. But Jan, I can send this to you and see if you can get it to compile okay on the dependencies and see if that works for you. And maybe sure. That will then really choose something you're happy with. So I'm just suggesting this is one way of doing it because I like doing this for the other drafts I'm working on. But that doesn't mean I don't care. Anything that works for you and other people are happy with is fine.
happy to play with it, and I think it's nice, but it's not critical that it displays right away. I'm used to working without all of those nifty things, and it works. I can do work, but it's of course nice if it is possible to make it work nicely.
And the key here is not necessarily the output, it's just to have a way to, you can easily show the trees for people who are working on this, like the design team. So that's the key thing. Whatever works is an easy way for people to see the differences here, to be efficient working. Any other comments on this? Okay. I'll stop that sharing. I can put the link. Well, I'll check it works with Jan first before I share the link, and I need to fix it for Windows because obviously the Python virtual environment is different for that. So at this point, then I suggest that we start. Either we go through some of the issues that we shared before, or we can basically start going through what Jan proposes. But it might be that actually Jan needs to then try and get some document as a starting point. I don't know. At this point, it's now open to the working group in terms of what they suggest. The last 2 points I wanted to mention is, does anyone have a preference here as to whether we do this on these meetings on MeetEcho? I can book those through MeetEcho, or otherwise I was going to propose using WebEx because that might be easier. So other design teams or things, I've used WebEx, and that's slightly easier in terms of people interacting. But is there any preference? I'm hoping that doing WebEx might also alleviate the need for formal minutes on each of the meetings as well.
And not only that, if I may add, is that simply it would be it would be easier to manage the invites, etc. Roland was asking for a formal invite using a calendar invite to be sent on the list. This is something that when we do it through Meetup, etc., is more complicated. So will be easier to manage invites and everything.
Yeah, I'm sorry for not sending an ICS out file. I'm always surprised that when the MeetEcho scheduling tool doesn't do that automatically, I get thrown each time. I think I need to learn.
It's a little bit more complicated. Personally, I would support that, and well, so far I have taken one agreement regarding the process, and I can take a second agreement as in the notes, as that we agree to move to WebEx, since they are not going to be formal design team meetings. They are something that are publicly available, and that we can use a tool that seems more suited for our purpose, unless there is any objection.
So there's a couple other things that I'll cover them now because we've got spare time. One of them is the next IETF meeting is coming out. There's a preliminary agenda that's out at the moment. This could well change. I can't remember if it's been sent to the whole community or just to the chairs probably. But looking at the moment, green is going to be Monday and Friday with a short session on Monday and a long session on Friday. It would be good to understand. So it's the last session on Friday, currently between 2 and 4. My proposal would be to try and do the main work group discussion of documents on the Monday, and then maybe have, again, like a design team sort of meeting on the Friday. But I will probably email the folks that have to find out what sort of level of participation we'll get on the Friday as to whether that would work. So that's to be aware of. And for those who have documents, that again, please start thinking about if you're going to want to present to that would be quite useful. Is that the only thing I want to discuss? WebEx I've discussed already. So now again, I think it's sort of time to anything that we want to discuss in terms of progressing the design team work. So Jan, is anything you think you can cover now, or do you want to go away and start those formal discussions next week?
I haven't prepared any sort of agenda or questions for now, but it would be good if we could get going on the mailing list. So if you have opinions about how to start about work item 1 and 2, state your opinions on the mailing list.
And at the moment, we're just going to assume that we will go with your plan. I mean, that I think is because we just need to get moving, and then nothing is set in stone. We can change it, but at the moment, let's start just sort of making progress.
Very good.
I mean, I can bring up the issues we had before, if I can find those, if that's helpful for this time, or we can cut it short because I don't want to waste people's time if they.
Well, I believe you know, Rob, that they have another meeting at 4 that I can't at the point, so that would be perfect. So I assume that well, that at least all of the people present here are planning to stay till Friday afternoon on the in Montreal. Those of you planning to go to Montreal, so that's so at least there will be 20 of us in the room for the session, the last session on the Friday.
Well, we could do a show of hands just to test that, actually.
Yeah, well.
Okay, fine. Marisol, do you want to a question?
Yes, I have a question, and it's about the call for adoption for mainly for, I think we have 3 documents, right? The use cases, terminology, and the framework. What will be next for those 3 documents? I think the framework is already a 5th version. I think we are running already for a year. We mentioned in the Green Working Group to have a short term approach, right, for what we are going to produce. And I think we are already in that year time frame, right? We mentioned about 18 months. But how should we move forward with that call for adoption request?
So the use cases and terminology ones, I think it's just on the chairs to sort of try and kick those off again. See the framework. I can't remember when it was first. Was the last IETF meeting the first time it was presented?
I'll have to check that, but you're at version 5 now.
The cutoff date is on the 20th, if I remember well.
So I think for the framework, I would suggest that you update and present again at the next IETF meeting. I would like to try and then consider. I think Diego and I need to chat and find out whether we think that's now ready for an adoption call. I think if it's the same folks working on this, I don't want to necessarily rush too quickly because, again, in the same way that the models that we'll be working on, the initial versions of those won't be adopted by the working group, even though there's common interest in there. I think the frameworks should fit into that same category because I don't want to make it harder for you to change it necessarily. So that's the one thing I think we need to be careful with. So let us think about that one for the framework document.
Okay.
Anyway, I don't see any issue in at least the use case document. I believe is something that we tried for we tried for the first adoption call and we stopped it because there was some comments about not being mature enough and the group itself not being mature enough to go for an adoption. I think that in that case, I mean, probably should be reasonable to try to go for it. With the other one is the terminology, isn't it?
Yeah.
The terminology, I believe that this is something that we have to have. Might be that we can wait for another version or another revision in the next at the next meeting. And the framework, the one that I have the feeling that is somehow urgent in the sense that has been around for quite a while is the one on use cases. For the other two, I don't know. I mean, something that we can wait for the last live set of comments during the coming meeting, and then go for the call for adoption. But might be it would be good to send a message to the community that we are starting considering the adoption of documents starting with the use cases. That would be my idea.
Okay. I think Mahesh wanted to speak to a different topic. So I think we're sort of done. We're meeting again next week, so everyone remembers. But otherwise, Mahesh, do you want to?
Rob, just because we had to disconnect while Mahesh is going to is talking. No offense intended. But just a note. When we have we had to make the arrangements for the WebEx, etc. So I will, and when we make this, I will update the invite so everyone is aware of the coordinates for the next meeting.
All right. So I was mentioning to Rob that the different topic that I wanted to talk was the IEEE IETF coordination meeting brought up the question of the work within the Green Working Group. And so first of all, the question to the working group is there any, excuse me, if there's anything that IEEE needs to be aware of in terms of work that the Green Working Group will be taking up. And in my mind, at least, one thing that I was thinking of was the use case of interface management and the power usage on that. Now, this is, of course, all of IEEE, which includes not only 802.3, but also, I think, 802.15, which is the Wi-Fi side of it. So if the work group thinks there's anything they would like to bring up to the attention of IEEE, do let me know, as I do have those meetings with them.
It sounds like, oh, Jan, go ahead. Go ahead, Jan.
I don't know if it's just me, but I don't know very much about what IEEE is interested in and working on. So if you could summarize that at some point in a minute or two, that may inform our decision whether to bring something up with them or not.
Right. So I think the question is, if there's anything in particular from a power usage or measurement perspective that we need IEEE to specify as part of their specification, that then the Green Working Group can use. So that was the direction I was thinking of, but maybe there's something else also.
So my thinking here is yes, possibly is the answer. So I think as the data models evolve, we should have that in mind to think if there's anything where we might need to instrument the IEEE data models for this sort of thing. So I think that's a valid thing. My initial assumption is probably not. The expectation is what do we come up with? It should be generic enough that it's not tied to IEEE data models, or in some senses it would just use the IETF data models we have. So my instinct is no, but it might be worth you having adding an item to the list of topics that you are tracking with the IEEE. So if I remember correctly, they had a list of items. It might be worth being aware and adding this on, so that again, it's just a periodic touch point. I can't use every 4 months you do it or something similar, just to see if there's anything there. But I suspect most of the time it should be fine, and you can skip over it.
Right, and just to note, it may not necessarily be just limited to IEEE Yang models. It could be the base specification itself. Meaning, is there an exposure of power consumption, say, for an interface? Is that something that needs to be specified?
Yes, don't know. Too early to know. As in, I don't know if it'd be tied to an interface or just tied to a component, and a component could be an interface.
Yeah. Okay.
Otherwise, I think we will. Is it like any other questions or comments for today? Otherwise, we'll cut it a bit shorter for today, and we'll meet in a week's time. I will try and sync up with Jan offline. Okay, well, thank you everyone today. I will send out just some brief minutes, or I'll upload some brief minutes just to sort of document what we've discussed and the plans going forward, but they will be very brief. And then effectively, we'll meet again in a week's time. Hopefully, I'll chat with Jan. Hopefully, we'll have more opportunities to have a sort of concrete plan going forward.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Okay, bye. Enjoy, guys.
Hello. Is anybody online?